What's going on, everybody? This is J. Marie Poetry. I am owner of dirtywordsapparel.com. We got a lot of new things in the store I want y'all to check out. So dirtywordsapparel.com. Definitely go ahead and shop. You might find something you like there. Now, I'm the host of the Dirty Pleasure Show, and we are on episode 4, The Fine Print of Relationships. So we're going to go ahead and get into our intros. Go ahead, Brandy, introduce yourself. Let people know who you are and where to reach you and where to find you on social media.
My name is Brandy. I am the owner of the Pleasure Palace. I am an independent bedroom candy consultant. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram at BK Pleasure Palace. I not only sell the pleasurable adult toys, I also sell makeup as well. I will make sure that I leave the link to my websites in the comments below. And I'm also the co-host of the Dirty Pleasure Show.
Great. There we go. All right. So while we go ahead and get the show started, we want to talk about, so the fine print of relationships. And what we mean by that is like, there are things that you learn about your mate or about relationships in general, pardon me, that give you sort of like, okay, let me see, say you're studying for a test or a certification exam, I'm in the IT field, I'm in the IT field. So any certification that I study for, they give you like these wild ass scenarios that in the real world would not go like that at all. They give you this set of prescribed whatever, and this is how you pass and get the certification. Okay, so when we're talking about the fine print of relationships, this is that real world scenario that this books and gurus, relationship gurus and motherfucking pastors and preachers and priests and whoever you pray to, talk to, consult to about your relationship could not have prepared you for this. So we want to talk about what are those things that you've learned along the way with relationships or in your current relationship, depending on wherever you are at, whether you're single or in a relationship. What are some things that you've learned that you would say are the fine print? Like nobody told you, nobody prepared you, nothing prepared you for this. So we want to know about that. So, Brandy, let me shoot it your way. What is one thing that you say was like maybe this fairy tale that you had in your mind, or this sort of belief you had in your mind of how things were going to go? What is that one thing when you were dating that, or did you go through a dating phase, or did you just kind of go from I meet you, then we get in a relationship?
I've normally dealt with the meeting you and then we're in a relationship, but in my mind, that's how it's supposed to go. And that was being fed to me. So I believed it, only to realize that's not how it goes. Unless they say, I'm in a relationship with you.
Okay.
You're not really in a relationship with them. So yeah.
So would you say that you assumed based off of some
actions
or like, okay, so was it someone like in your life who kind of gave you the rundown about relationships, or did you learn from like books, or was it like, you know what I mean, like
everything? You know what? Everything that I've learned from relationships, I didn't read books, but I would listen to people or like watch TV, these little magical relationships, and then like really got in relationships and realized a lot of trial and error. Like that is not how it goes. So the next time I approach things really different.
Okay. So one of the things that I think for me would be a fairy tale. A lot of times, so the women that I had in my life at the time before I started going into, relationship deal, we'll say, your early 20s or whatever. When I started to go through that phase, I had women Um, it was fuck nigga season. Those were the women that I had around me. It was fuck nigga season. And it was the man can't do this, never do this. Had all these things about never relying on a man. Relationship, kid's father, like no kind of which way ever have a situation where you're relying on a man. So that kind of gave me the dynamic of the imbalance. And I learned that very quickly. That's the fine print that you don't figure out until you actually go in a situation where you go in with that mindset and you're like, well, I want to be able to do this and do that and da 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 da. And you realize those actions are actually demasculating the guy that you're with. And that's causing the imbalance in the relationship, or you're enabling him to be a mama's boy type where he's expecting you to take care of him and do for him and things like that, like his mother would. So,
Well, if that's the case, I wasn't really taught anything like in my family. The only people that were married were the older generations in my family, or they had already divorced, spouse had passed. So I wasn't really taught anything about, like red flags, how to deal with a man, how to not deal with a man. I wasn't taught any of that. Like, literally,
okay,
was not taught any of that and walked into some hellish scenarios.
Okay. So there's a lot of fairy tales that went to nightmares, seem like. Or maybe nightmares that went to nightmares because you didn't have anything to go with.
They were nightmares because I wasn't taught anything about boundaries and red flags. So they were nightmares and then turned into really big nightmares, if that makes sense.
Okay. So really big nightmares. Now, when we're talking about, was it anything to do with how you reacted or how you responded or didn't respond, or was it done to you? Where
it was done to me. It was done to me, and I didn't know that you can walk away from that type of thing because I was never taught about those situations. So it was stuff that was done to me, and how I reacted. I could have ended things, or it definitely wasn't. I didn't stay in that situation because it was not love. I was just never taught to walk away from that. I thought it was something I had to deal with.
Okay. And we've got another guest I'm going to bring up here in just a second. But what I wanted to add on kind of to what you were saying, Brandy, was when we're talking about the fine print and we're talking about some things that they didn't tell you. So one of the things that I think I recognized early on was that I had a interest. Let me see how I had a heightened interest in sex more than some of my mates did. And it caused there to be this sort of like imbalance in the bedroom where I was doing too much or trying to introduce too much. And they were either taking kind of like put off from it. One of the things that I started to realize was that the whole thing about sexual chemistry and sexual congruency. Like you, maybe you don't. I don't know that I would necessarily want somebody to be the same exact as me, but not so far off that we don't see eye to eye on anything. So one of the things that I think was a huge fairy tale was this. Either you have an amazing sex life or he ain't shit. Fuck that nigga. Move on, and continue to do what you've been doing and be single and be bitter and all this other type of stuff. So there wasn't that explanation that you got to deal with some stuff. Some stuff you got to kind of try to work or tweak or whatever, fix to your liking or to where you can deal with it or adjust yourself. So, and that was a big deal, adjusting myself. So we're going to go ahead and add Shay to the stream. Shay, we want to get your feedback on a fairy tale or some sort of situation where when you were coming up, you weren't prepared for this, whatever this is. And by the way, you look stunning, girl.
Thank
I like your
you.
glistening skin and all that. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
But go ahead.
Uh, mm, coming up, I guess I could say the same thing like Brandy. I wasn't really taught what to expect in a relationship, and I think I saw some of my female relatives in broken relationships, and I think it just kind of it made me feel like I didn't want to be in a broken relationship. So I think I actually started putting up with things that I shouldn't have, thinking that if I didn't say anything, that it would just everything would just go good. And it wasn't like that at all.
Let me ask. So, were you taught to be or not complacent? You were taught to be like submissive as opposed to have a voice, or like,
Well, I wouldn't say I was necessarily taught, but just looking at the females around me, they didn't say their stuff was just so messy, and I guess I got my own perceptions of their relationships. So to me, I just decided I didn't want to be in a messy relationship. So I'm just thinking if you just try to be perfect, that then
okay,
everything was just gonna be perfect.
okay. And as long, so it wasn't necessarily the whole thing, kind of like when you get into the biblical side of it, where it's like submissive to the husband and all that. Was it that type of thinking, or was it the coming to America, the chick that was barking like a dog and hopping on one leg and all that kind of stuff? Was it that type of?
Probably more so that, but mentioning biblical, as because I have been married. As I
Uh-huh.
was going into the marriage, I thought once I gave my life to Christ that everything would just be perfect then. So then I started trying to line up with what I thought was a biblical wife and acting like that. And I can honestly say, I think in that I a lot of issues being young, um, and learning. I wanted things to go good, but some of the things that I said and the things I did, looking at it now, it just probably really complicated. It really complicated the marriage.
Oh, okay. One of the things that I think I learned was that there sometimes we emulate what we think we don't. We sometimes we emulate what we think we're not affected by. Meaning, say you're growing up and you don't want a messy relationship, like you were saying, because that the way that you perceive their interactions, their communications, and things like that was messy, or how they lack of communication was messy. In your way, your thought to clear up the mess or to not to avoid it is to instead not docile. What is the word?
Complacent.
Complacent. Becoming complacent in that. Let me just say what I'm trying to I can't think of the word. Rather, let me just say the actions of it. So you thought that to avoid or to mitigate going down the messy path, that if you just reversed it and did exactly opposite, that would prevent you from going down and having the same failures or the unsuccessful relationship path, the unsuccessful relationship check. Check this off the box
Right,
now. So I guess it's
and I'm
interesting because when we're talking about you actually emulated what you decided you did not want anything to do with. And the reason I bring that up, or at least that's how it seems to me, is that you still failed at it, even
right,
though you went a different path. And I think this is almost getting into a counseling session, and I'm not trying to do that, but it's just some things that I've learned. Like this is the fine print. Like one of the things for me was to you focus so much on the wrong shit. Let me say
right,
it like that. I focus so much on not being like the women that I considered myself family to or whatever. to
Right.
not be like them so much that I focused on just not being like them, not having a particular understanding that in itself gave me baggage on top of the other shit as I went through life,
Exactly. Mhm.
baggage. And then a lot of stuff that I saw the women kind of like, I say perpetuating maybe, is that we were perfect. We don't need to change for a man. Who the fuck is he? And how can he tell me about me? And you know, all of these things where it's like I'm the queen of my castle and the da da da, and the queen forgot that you got a king, or
Right.
you know, when you have a
Exactly.
king, rather, you got to balance the crown. It's not a I'm wearing the crown, I'm doing this and that, and you got to, you know, be at your feet or be at my feet rather, kissing my ass and all this other kind of stuff. In the relationship, he don't do what he want to do ever. He can't go where he want to go ever, eat where he want to eat ever, be out with his boys, do anything, because you know, you got some way of manipulating the situation. Now he feel bad about it. Was I doing it on purpose? Sometimes I was. Sometimes I really knew intentionally I did not want him to go out with his boys. A lot of stuff in a lot of places where, you know, you shouldn't be. And what was that part of where was that part in the damn book of the sisters, you know, who got their shit together book that said, you might want to check yourself. You might want to
Right.
make sure that you giving as much as you asking or requiring, or the things that you are requiring, are you able to what you asking them to do, can you do? You know, and yeah, nigga, wasn't nobody prepared for that. To realize that you might be the cause of your fucked up relationships and the people you picking too. But on top of the fact that you're not dealing with stuff you're supposed to be dealing with.
Right.
They don't tell you that. They don't tell you that you might be the one starting your own fucking fires that you talking about you need help putting out. Okay. So, Brandy, I'm about to get, I feel like this is like some sort of like counseling / church session. So let's change it up because I done came from them roots and I ain't trying to perpetuate none of that. So, Brandy, take it away.
Well, I was kind of getting into what you were saying, so let me gather myself just a minute. But with me, I would say I was more of kind of like Shay. I just did whatever to keep the peace, and doing whatever to keep the peace got me walked all over, and really, emotionally hurt because he saw that there's no issue with what I'm doing. There was a big issue with everything he was doing, but it was like, well, there's no big issue with me. So, I too, I didn't try to sabotage him. He went out his friends, but I didn't like sitting up all night wondering, like, what are you out there doing? Why, because you don't go out with me. You don't go anywhere and do anything with me, but you go
Mhm.
everything with them.
But
Like, I am a full second thought.
but have you ever said, hey, let's do this, let's do that? Or have you assumed that he should know?
Now, what I've learned is I have learned to start speaking up.
Mhm.
After about the second guy that completely just ran over me and did everything and knew because my heart was in the right place, they can get away with it. I've learned to speak up in trial and error. A couple times I've been like, so this is bullshit. I guess you want to do this, you want to do that. And then I had to learn it's my delivery. I can't just be like, oh, so I guess you can go hang out here. Oh, so we're just not going to go anywhere. That type of thing. And I'm sorry.
And why
Emotional
you
abuse.
stopping? Why you stopping? And why you stopping?
I was reading the messages, but what I learned to do was, just like, when are we going to go out on a date? When are we going to do this? Like, I've learned how to deliver and what am I trying to say? Communicate. I've learned
Right.
to communicate because before I wouldn't communicate. I would just sit back like, okay, go do what you want, But now I'm learning like, okay, when are you going to spend time with me? When do I get to see you? And that's something I've learned from previous dealings. Like,
Yeah.
you got to, you don't be mean about it because that's what creates the fights. But now what his response is that could be another issue. But if you guys are talking about it, that might change. You know what I mean? So I
Right.
have learned since I've learned to deliver my problems and I guess to communicate them in an adult way, not saying some crazy
Mhm.
off the wall shit. But
Right.
um, it's actually been good. So I had to, I think from, since I didn't know anything about relationships, I think because of my previous dealings with toxic people, I picked up on toxic behavior and
Right.
thought that's how every relationship is going to go. When it's really things I was doing for them was codependency. And when you get with somebody, and you could be either exclusively dealing with them or not, but you get with somebody who's more nonchalant and I won't say nonchalant, but more relaxed about how the way they're going, you got to learn. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like to me, being that nonchalant, like you're just not interested in me, so I don't say anything. But then when I start talking about it and trying to see what's going on with them, I notice things have gotten smoother. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
might have just like went off the complete deep end, but
No,
yeah.
no, no, no. I no. Very very similar circumstance. Let me just say that. We'll talk offline about that. But that's interesting. We'll talk offline.
Right. So I
Okay.
think it
Go
was
ahead.
interesting that when you said how you went from like not communicating to communicating, but I think also with the other person, whether it's us picking up things or them, if they had have noticed that behavior and maybe could have brought it to your attention to say, your attention, my attention, and say, okay, you're acting this way, because sometimes we may not realize exactly how that looks or how that's making a person feel. And if they're not communicating and saying anything, then sometimes the other person is holding a little they could be a little responsible too. So I think sometimes maybe what I'm trying to say is if we um if we know each other a little bit more, then a lot of these things would be eliminated, because we could work on it, we could fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I kind of think a lot of the well, let me say I agree and I disagree on some stuff, but the disagreement is just a slight part of it because I think that the fine print of a relationship a lot of time has to do with you and what you allow or what you are perpetuating in your relationship. Because one thing that I know from previous relationships, one of my biggest things was like when I get so angry, so pissed off, so hurt, whatever it is that's the negative emotion, I will shut down. I don't communicate. I don't try to communicate my feelings or try to do anything to let that person know what's wrong with me. And I
Even if
thought
they
that because
ask.
that was, yeah, and I thought that was the opposite of what I saw growing up was the volatile, bombshell type stuff. Well, I said, well, I'm not gonna be like that. I'm gonna do the opposite. I'm gonna make sure I don't do nothing like that. Nothing.
Right.
And my opposite was to shut down. Well, I had to learn, and it wasn't until recently that I learned that ain't the way to do it. That ain't the way to do it. And there's a different way to go about it. And controlling your emotions is a big part of that.
Right.
It is.
Because We don't control our emotions. We feel unheard. We got to yell. We got to curse. We got to belittle. We got to, or either reverse it. Oh, nobody fucking loves me. I need this and that, that part of it. Or I can't breathe without you type of bitch. And
Mhm.
things like that. You become that chick. I was trying not to say bitch. It came out. I mean, I'm doing good today. All right, but you become that girl, okay? And then you become that
Right,
woman
right.
who thinks it's okay. And notice I said girl, woman. So we talking about growth, thinking that you wasn't growing in that area, but you were thinking that was cool. You were thinking that no, that's a safe space. No, you're not communicating, and it's not until you recognize that it's a lot of you in this too, and what Jessica is talking about, emotionally unavailable types. I was well, I don't know if you say I was the reverse or if I was this super emotional type at one point, and I wasn't recognizing that it was me, not them, and I was being the victim, and that's the other side of the coin, I guess, is when you play the victim, or you are always the victim. You're never the one who aggressed this, or you were the aggressor, or you were in somehow, in some way rather, enabling that situation. I see Steven says, I'm getting to the comments. Our upbringing has a lot to do with how we deal with adults. Toxic traits can show up at all points of life. Yeah, it can show up as a kid. It can show up or not show up. And then at the last, I say your later years in life, you learn like, yo, that wasn't the way to go. Like that whole
Right.
thing you saying, oh, that's just me, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna change for nobody, or I'ma be me regardless. Well, that me might not be the best you supposed to be. Maybe you need to be a little bit like
And
maybe
some people sure live by that. Well, that's just how I am. Well, it's pretty shitty.
yeah, but I mean, even us, I say that I'll be like, nah, girl, that's just me. And I'm like, well, hold on. You start thinking about that and cleaning that part up, then you start recognizing your relationships wasn't all they fault. The failures wasn't all they fault. And that's a fine print, because they like to think you're getting W's all the time and anybody else is getting a loss is they lost kind of thing. Where it's like, no, it's your loss too, because you're not realizing who's the part that keeps on being consistent is you. You consistently have this same frame of mind. And those are fine print. That's some fine print shit for your ass.
And you know what? The last guy I dealt with, um, he was playing the shit out of me. And I stood around and I dealt with it. I dealt with it. And I forgot where I was going with that story that fast. Oh, and so and I dealt and I dealt and I stuck around with it. And I think after the last time we had an issue, I'm like, you know what? Why don't I leave the situation? Why don't I stop engaging in this and putting myself in this spot? And I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. And I have to sit back and be like, yeah, you played the shit out of me. You did. But I allowed you to play the shit out of me a lot. And that was a hard realization I had to come to. But once I got out of that, I said, I'm never doing that again. So I had to really sit back like, yeah, you hurt me. You hurt me to the core, but I stuck around longer when I should have walked away a long time ago. And that's where, now I'm learning to communicate and do all this other stuff, because I can't keep repeating them same mistakes. So that, I would say that was definitely on me, because I allowed that shit to happen.
Okay. So when we're talking about, okay, and it definitely leads to emotions. When we're talking about emotions and things like that, is there, you know what, that was something I forgot, B. The emotional IQ test. It was something I was going to look up and I completely forgot about it. because I wanted us to talk about our scores and to kind of compare and see where, if we all kind of fall in the same range or whatever. But
Yeah.
we will maybe do that for the replay. We'll probably do it then. So, your emotional IQ, like, will you say that like we were talking about, are you an infant, or are you a teenager, or are you an adult when you think about your emotional IQ, like, or high school or something like that? Like, would you say you're college level, or would you say you're like middle school, elementary school, or whatever when you think about your emotional IQ?
I want to say, honestly, maybe college level for me, but that's just something I recently reached. So,
Okay. So
but I'm
college
still learning
level
how
as in,
to that I'm learning to be an adult in a relationship versus that younger girl that wants to argue, but will just put up with anything and just kind of just be unhappy just for the sake of having somebody. Where now it's like I'm learning to talk and regulate my emotions and learning to leave things, where they are and meeting people where they are type thing. So that's
okay,
for me,
okay,
but that's kind of hard to kind of say exactly where I'm at, but it's definitely different from the last
okay,
couple of years. But that's just
okay,
me. So
okay. So I might say college level, but freshman year.
yeah, something
I,
like that.
I might say college level, but freshman year, because I have a lot of growing to do.
Yeah.
Well, no, I might say sophomore year. Only because I think there's a lot of growth. There's a lot of growth that I need to have, or whatever you want to say personally. But it's a constant thing where you're constantly trying to, like. I'm not saying there's one specific thing, but I'm like, I know me overall. I'm like, there's some things I don't be thinking about the best way I need to be thinking about. But
Hmm.
as far as the actions outwardly, I still, unfortunately, I still kind of fake the funk with some stuff. And I'm like, all right, I got to get to the point where I'm okay with this, and that. And, okay, so Stephen is saying he's working on his doctorate of emotional intelligence. Cause maybe you need to get on here and explain this, because a doctorate, that's probably like the highest level of emotional intelligence now. I guess if we were talking about from elementary school through college.
I'm on up there though. I wouldn't say I think I'm at college level, but I will put myself almost ready to come out of there because I've learned how to manage my emotions, and I think I think about things that I say and do before I do it. And I think I've also learned to kind of um what do I want to say for the other person? I can kind of not manage anybody else's emotions, but when they're emotionally unstable, like I can kind of see that, and it doesn't, like, I don't take flight or anything, but I do realize, okay, yeah, that's a issue. So I've learned a lot in that department because years ago, 20 years ago, I was not there. I was throwing things and my emotions was all over the place, but not anymore. So I would say that I do really well in that department.
Okay. Okay. So what is okay, so what is the fine, like, if you would say, what's the fine print in a relationship that you didn't know about yourself towards your mate? Meaning some action that you took or did not take in your relationship? When did you learn, or what was that you learned of yourself in that part? Does that?
Um, was you ready to say something, Brandy? Oh, okay. So, I learned that there were times when I should have said something that I didn't say, and then times that I was running my mouth too much when I should have just been quiet. Um, and that it's okay to apologize, but I had to learn a balance because I would either be too far over here or too far over here. So I had to learn how to bring that, together and just bring a balance because I would just be, just one way or the other. I was too much, just team entirely too much.
Right. I think um, one of the things that I learned about myself and still learning, I feel like like I said, I feel like there's a lot of things I gotta grow into. Like I gotta grow into some shoes, I'll say, some things. And one of the things that I think, or one of the major things that I've learned in a relationship was about the submissiveness, but it was about how to be submissive and how to let the man be a man. Now, I'm not gonna get into no biblical stuff or nothing like that with that, but my my thing with that was I needed to understand how to let him do something for me. Let him be in charge of something. Let him have some sort of ownership of some process or whatever in our relationship. Let him be the man. Like, don't always try to make the decisions or even over talking. And this is one I know I've had a lot of growth in, but just understanding to let a man be a man. And for me being such an independent woman, and that's the way I was raised because it was fuck nigga season for years. That's how I was raised. And then I had to like understand there's a balance. There are some fuck niggas that you don't need to fuck with. And you got to get your picker right and all this other type of stuff. So I had to learn that there were some things, there were some anomalies or some caveats to that upbringing that I had and that thought process that I had that I needed to break. So let me see. I'm gonna read Stephen's comment and I'm gonna bring up our next guest. Identifying trauma. He says my own and my mates is a big first step. I agree with that.
Now,
Identify.
I fully agree with that. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Now,
I agree with that.
we're gonna catch the next guest up because he is running late because he has some stuff to do with his children. So I respect the man who takes care of his children and all that good stuff. So we're gonna go ahead and bring up James. So James, welcome to the
Hey, what's
show.
up?
Let us know. Let me just get you kind of caught up. So we want to talk about like the fairy tales that you might have had about a relationship that um you found out abruptly was like, oh no, nigga, you were so wrong. Like what was something like that you had a fairy tale of, whether it was of yourself in some situation or the woman that you're with in some situation or some sort of you thought she would have known this or you thought it would be this way kind of situation.
Well, well, the I never really had any fairy tales about a relationship. It was more of a let me see, what am I thinking? More of a like an idea of how something, not really, well, kind of how an idea of how it should be, but of like a fairy tale ending, happily ever after. That was never really a thought of mine because I know we're all imperfect. And the way we live our life, as long as we're trying, that's really, I think that counts for something. The like the first time I've been married twice. So like the first time I got married, I thought it was like the
Oh,
happily ever after.
you,
I thought it was going to be forever. And I went to Iraq for 12 months. I came back home, and 2 months later, she's like, "Oh, I think I'm pregnant." And I'm like, "Okay." And I come to find out she's already 6 months pregnant, and I was in Iraq for 12 months. So I'm like, "Yeah, okay." So that right there showed me that, yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I thought. But I was so mad, all I could do was laugh. But I never yelled. I never did anything physical. I never touched her. I was like, you know what? You just need to go. And that right there was like my rude awakening, because I did think that that was going to be a happily ever after type thing. But it just opened my eyes that we're all imperfect, and there's no situation that's ever going to be perfect. It's going to have its ups and downs. We're going to have our problems. It's just what matters is what we do with it and how we deal with it.
okay. Okay, now you said you were married twice. I
Yep.
wanna ask, going into the second marriage, I don't know what happened with my voice. Okay, going into the second marriage, um, what did you then do differently, or did you think you needed to do something differently for the second marriage in order for that to be successful?
Well, the only thing I did different was I treated her like she was the suspect until she wasn't. That was something that I did. I was like, you know what? Yeah,
Wow.
I believe what you say, but at the same time, I don't believe you until I see it. So
Ooh.
it was, like dating somebody that has been through a traumatic experience. Sometimes they tend to take that out on you when you had nothing to do with it. So I kind of gave her that little leeway because she was coming out of something traumatic, and her way of dealing with it from time to time was to lash out at me. And I'm like, wait a minute, time out. I didn't do that to you. I never touched you. I never yelled at you. I never did anything to you. So I'm
Now,
gonna need you
okay,
to take that down a notch.
okay, but you bring up a good point, because just like Stephen was saying, identifying trauma. You
Yeah.
had trauma going into that. Do you agree?
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely a trust issue. It definitely was. And it
And
was
then
one of those things where,
with her toxic relationship that she had just got out of,
yeah,
do you think that both of y'all um well, I guess I mean, she went through it where I'm pretty sure it was like she thought it was gonna go one way and it went left, 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 and then left.
yeah,
And then y'all get together. You have your set of trauma. She has her set of trauma, just like he was saying. But
yeah.
then identifying it, do you think that if you would have identified it, like he's saying, identifying it and working on it, that the relationship would have worked? Or do you think that there was just more to it than that?
For the second time I was married, it wouldn't have mattered about identifying that sort of trauma because we were both in the military at the time. And the way I dealt with the military was different than the way she dealt with it. And she would do it in a negative way. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, you need to go talk to somebody. So I would push her to try to get her to go talk to a counselor, go talk to a mental health person. And in her mind, there was nothing wrong. And I'm like, okay, if the kids are saying that you need to talk to somebody, and I'm telling you that you need to talk to somebody, there's a problem. Somebody notices something, and we're trying to get you to see somebody to help you and not just sit there and point blame and be mean to you. Because I was never mean to her either. She refused to see somebody, and I'm like, look, I'm not dealing with like toxic stuff. That's not the way I want to live my life. So I'm gonna have to let you do what you do, but you're not gonna do it with me.
Okay, okay. Well, and I mean, but to be fair, now, do you think that you put off some of your own trauma on her though? Like you
No,
added more?
not for the second time, no. Because
Okay,
being in the military is like at one point in time I outranked her. Like I was more senior to her.
okay.
And she was like, I want to join the military too because I want to know what it's like. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I taught her everything I need, or everything I knew to help her get through base. And there was no problem with that. The problem was when we got out of the military, she had a traumatic experience where she broke her back, and she went through recovery, went through surgery, all that good stuff, and recovered fine. I hurt my back too, and I had surgery, but my surgery was not even close to the traumatic situation that she had. But the way she kind of took that out on people, that I was not okay with that. So I had to let it go. It was like, even though we got kids, I can be there for the kids, but I don't need to be there for you, because you are the one that's having the issue and are trying to take it out on other people, and that's not okay. So now two of the kids live with me and two live with her because they didn't want to have nothing to do with that.
Staying on topic now, guys. We're not talking about the parenting thing. That's what I said. That's another show. We're talking about the fine print of relationships. We're talking about those things that we kind of weren't prepared for, or we had somehow in our mind that it's supposed to go this way and it didn't. And then we had it in our mind that we're supposed to not change for nobody. Not change for nobody. Now that's something that if you think about it, it makes sense ultimately. But if you have some toxic things about yourself that you need to change, then whether
You got to
you
reevaluate it.
Tina, it don't matter. I gotta address those things because I'm gonna keep on repeating them. But you weren't necessarily told that you might need to change who you are to be a better version of yourself to attract the right person to get in the relationship with, and all that kind of stuff. So those are things that, like, gurus, they tell you, oh, I'm gonna teach you how to catch a man, but you don't teach you how to keep him. I'm gonna teach you how to get your girl, get your dime, whatever, but you don't teach them how to keep them. So it's a lot of stuff that we find out along the way that our parents or whoever it was that gave us the game didn't give us the entire game, because they didn't know what we were going to experience or how we were going to have somebody come in our space and completely take us out of our character.
And we met online, talked for a little bit. She was like, hey, you want to go to the casino with me? I was like, okay, that's not really my scene, but all right. I'm not a huge fan of casinos, but all right, let's go. So I meet up with her at the casino, and we're sitting there. That's all I spend. Once I make my $20 back, I put my $20 back in my pocket. Then I play with the casino's money because I'm not trying to lose, a whole paycheck playing around at the casino. I ain't got money to give out like that. So she takes her 20 and she gets up to like $200 on a penny slot. So I reach over and I press cash out, cashed her out, took that little slip, stuck it in my pocket, and she put her 20 back in there. And okay,
I'm trying to understand. This is the first date?
First date, yes.
Did you know her prior to this date?
Nope. I explained myself before we went in there. And I said, this is what I personally do, so I don't lose money, because I don't like giving away money like that. Now, I am very terrible with money. I do give away money, but I don't give it away to casinos. So when I explained to her $20,
you give it away to strip clubs?
Fuck no. I've been to a strip club three times in my life, and that shit was terrible.
Thank you for the thank you for the tangent you went on there.
Well, you asked.
Yeah, I did. So man, I forgot where I was going with the question.
You were talking about the first date.
First date.
Yep.
That's a little too involved for me.
Well,
when I be pocketing,
I get where you coming from.
Pocketing my money.
And I did it, and I explained to her why I did it, and I talked to her the whole time.
I don't care. I would have been like, get your motherfucking soft ass.
When I said, but if you, but look, if I sit there and I'm talking to you, if I'm sitting there talking to you, and I notice
I can't
Look, if I sit there and
understand.
notice that you're being irresponsible and all I'm trying to do is help you and you
Well,
get
she
an attitude with me like that, I should have got up and left. But
you
at the same
should have
time,
because you
but here's the
pocketing
thing.
my
At the
money.
same
You
time,
didn't think that
I
was
was
a
trying
bit much for the first date?
The first
that was her
date,
choice. She wanted to go there. I didn't want to go there.
pocketing the
But
bitch's
you
money
took that
while
choice
she's
away from her
She
driving.
told
though.
me to
You
she told me
made
to
that
hold it.
your choice.
She told me to hold it.
What?
She gave me
Okay.
the tick. I took the thing out of the machine and handed it to her, and she was like, "No, you hold it." And I'm like, "Okay."
But
So every
but
time
then
we
you
took
were
a ticket, I held the
putting
ticket.
stipulations on it though. But you still was putting
Huh?
stipulations
Yeah.
on it. So
It's
you
like soon
wasn't
as
just holding
she
it. You took control of it. Like you wasn't just
Well,
holding
she
it, you
told me
took
to the
Yeah.
control
first
of
time.
it.
The first time she said it,
She
she
told you
gave
to
it to me
hold it.
and asked me to hold it. And I was like, okay. So
And you
every
went there.
time she hit 100, I was like, all right, cash out. Press cash out button, took the slip, put it in my pocket. And she was okay with that until it got to the point to where I'm like, so let's go. And she was like, let me try one more machine. I'm like, okay. So I sat there, watched her lose the money that she just made,
This is
and
a
I was trying to help her
But
walk
jail.
out of there with
but
more
why
money
you
than she walked
it's
in there
like
with.
it's like you were really pressed about the amount of it. So
Yeah.
even if honestly, if she lost all of it, like it was hers, why were you so attached, to it? I understand you want to help,
Hmm.
but you don't think that was a bit overbearing for your first date?
Yeah. Yeah.
I looked at it as I wanted to show her that I actually am a decent dude. I'm not trying to take advantage of her. I wanted to put her in a position where she would be successful. She wanted to go to the casino. I personally did not want to go, but when I saw her have success at that machine, I was like, "Hey, let's take your win and you leave. Let's leave because you have $1,100 in your pocket. You came in here with 20, and actually, it wasn't even her 20. It was my 20." But at the same time, I didn't care about that. I wanted the money that she made to go into her pocket and for her to take with her. I didn't want her to lose it. And she lost it because she was like getting kind of addicted to it and doing too much with it. And I'm like, yo, like, calm down. Let's go and save that for another day. But she wasn't trying to hear that. So I got mad and I got quiet. And I was like, I'm not going to say nothing else. I was like, it's your money. You do whatever you want.
So
Can
she
she
sounds
really
like a person.
know?
She sounds like a person that goes to the casino all the time anyway. So she probably is used to, winning or losing the money.
Whatever she,
Yeah.
I
yeah.
don't know.
Because I mean, she won. And I'm like, yo, take your win and go
Okay,
buy
let
your
me.
kids something fun. Do something nice for
Okay,
your kids.
so this was the other day though.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. I was gonna say, did you go back out on a second date with her? Like,
No.
it's not happening.
Nope.
You not okay?
Because
Well,
she has a like an addictive personality, and I'm not fond of that. So
okay.
I didn't say
It
nothing to her about it.
sounds
I
like it,
just that's not my thing. Like I don't really deal with people that have that addictive personality where they get stuck on stuff like that or they act like that, especially if somebody's trying to be nice to her. Like I went above and beyond to be nice to her. I
but
took her
do
to the restaurant she wanted to go to. I sat there and drove 30 minutes to go to the casino she wanted to go to,
well.
and I
Okay,
did not want
okay,
to go
okay. But now here's the thing, because this is where you. Why did you not feel like you could voice your opinion about going to the casino or going to a different one or going to the restaurant you wanted to go eat at instead of, like, okay, you go to the casino she wanted to go to, but why didn't you just want to go to the restaurant you wanted to go to? Like, why didn't you
because
communicate?
it's about I think that it's about setting an example or showing her that it's okay for her to be with me. Show her that she's comfortable or she can be comfortable with me, that I'm not going to do anything to her. I wanted her to pick the stuff to do because I wanted her to feel comfortable. And when people feel comfortable around you, then whatever happens, happens. But it would be more favorable to you of what happens if they're comfortable. If people are not comfortable with you, and they're not in a space where they feel okay,
But do
then
you?
it doesn't matter what you say, they're not going to believe you.
But would you say that? Okay, so what if the she was on the other foot? What if the woman was like, okay, yeah, we're gonna go where you want to go, where you want to do to whatever casino you want to go to,
That would have
whatever
been
food
fine.
you would have just chose to do that. And then what if I'm trying to think of what some the opposite. What if she wasn't having fun at the casino?
Then we
Would you
could have
have
went and
said
did something
something?
else. We could have
Okay,
went and did something else. I mean, because my thing is like this. It's like when you sit there and you go out with somebody for the first time, you want to see what kind of person they are. You want to be able to see them in a natural light and not who they're pretending to be, not
but
who they
you
want you to
were
see them
controlling
as,
that.
but what they who they actually are. And to be
But
able to see, huh?
I'm saying, but you were controlling that because you're saying you want them to be the natural person. You want them to be who
Yeah,
they're gonna be, but you were controlling who she was gonna be. She was about to be a balling ass or a broke ass bitch, one of the two.
she was about to lose
And,
all her money.
and
And
she was
I did not
doing
want
who
I
she
didn't
was
want
gonna
to be but I didn't want to be the person that sat there and let her do it.
be. But
If
that's
I
you
see something,
controlling
because
the
like I look at it like with my kids, for instance, if my kids are older, so if one of my kids was out somewhere and they were about to do something stupid or something that was going to cause them some sort of pain or some sort of messed up situation, I'm going to do what I can to make sure that they don't experience that. So that's what I did in this situation. I tried to do whatever I could to help her not experience being pissed off because number one, she went in there and lost all her money. Like I didn't want that to be the tone for any future interactions we had. So now she looks at it like, okay, huh?
well, you're saying now she looks at it like something. Well, if you're not gonna go out on a second date with her, she don't look at it like nothing.
Well, I'm
Then
saying
y'all
at
are
that time,
gonna
I
okay.
didn't want her to look at me and be like, oh, this dude just don't care. You know, I showed her that I do care for her as an individual. I do care about her well being. I
Well,
do care
what you
that
should have did was said when you was ready to go, she didn't want to go. You would have said, "All right, well, I'm finna head out. You can call yourself an Uber. I got somewhere to be."
I could have, but I was sitting there being patient. I was trying to see who she was. That's
Well,
that's
and you
how
see
I
who she
that's
is.
how I test people.
Who she
I just
is.
sit back and try to let them show me who they are.
All right. We're wrapping up the show. Thank you all for tuning in to the Dirty Pleasure Show. My name is J. Marie Portry. I am the host of the Dirty Pleasure Show, and she's a bedroom candy consultant. You can find her at BK Pleasure Palace, BK Pleasure Palace on Facebook and Instagram, and BK Pleasure Palace at gmail.com is her email address. Find out all the adult toys and all the little trinkets and things like that for the bedroom, y'all. Go ahead and check them out because I'm telling you, she might have some good sales for you.